So, this is my second recording of my Pathless Path discussions. And today I have invited a very dear friend who is David Bingham. David Bingham is a respected non duality teacher whose clear, direct guidance has helped thousands awaken to the effortless recognition of their true nature. And since his profound awakening in 2005, after listening to a podcast with John Wheeler, he has dedicated his time to supporting others and realizing their impersonal, infinite awareness that is always present. Most notably, David's work is featured in The Greatest Secret by Rhonda Byrne, where his teachings continue to reach a global audience seeking freedom beyond the limitations of the mind and ego. My own connection with David began in 2023, so just about 3 years from today's date, after my husband had read The Greatest Secret. And he pointed out David specifically, saying that I needed to look at his teachings. And so I went to David after, a couple of months after he said that, and immediately I resonated very deeply with what David was presenting. And at the same time, I lost my father. He passed, and I had an infinite awakening when that happened, because when he passed, there was basically no separation between him, myself, and my mother. But to bring us back to the interview, David has been probably the most profound teacher guide that I have encountered on my path. And so it is my great honor to have this conversation with David, to reconnect, with him personally, and also to perhaps introduce people to his work that may not know him yet. So welcome, David.
Thanks, Krista. Lovely to spend time with you.
Yes, absolutely. So David, it looks like over the past, 3 years, you've continued to have conversations with people, and you've got like some groups going on. Is there anything that has unfolded for yourself personally, and also what you're seeing with groups over the past 3 years?
It's been evolving on its own, really, because I tend not to plan or direct anything. I tend to respond to information coming in. And so the the circumstances in my personal life have changed in the past 3 years. I'm caring for my mum. And that actually has been quite an interesting opportunity because it's been an opportunity to live much more from impersonal being rather than from the personal mode, because um, it requires non-reactivity and neutrality and patience and those kind of things. So that's been very progressive and enriching in a way I would never expect it to be. And in terms of the teaching, it's developed mainly um, through the conversations, because the conversations and the people I speak with, such as yourself, it's a different perspective each time. And so new things are brought forward, and then things have just naturally evolved, really, in that way. And so it's been really the most interesting thing has been the way more people are actually realizing their true nature from watching the videos than from having one-to-one conversations. So it's really accelerating in that sense. And due to the number of people realizing their true nature, um, a couple of really nice people said they'd be happy to support the work I'm doing. So we began some group meetings just over a year ago, really to assist people with realization and help those in the integration process, because quite often the issues are quite common. So dealing with those in a group setting has been an effective way to help people more widely, really.
That's beautiful. Yeah, there's a couple of things in there that you said. So, with your personal life, you were saying that now caring for your mom, you're being put in a situation where you're living more from impersonal awareness.
Mm.
And one thing that has come up for me in this pathless path is, there's always this option of operating from impersonal awareness versus the personal mode.
Yes.
And I find myself a lot of times, it's my sometimes it's like your preference. It's I guess it's my preference to be in the impersonal
Yes.
mode. But when I find that I'm like building resistance, and mainly when I have two boys and they fight a lot, and they're
Mm.
always like fighting over really dumb things.
Mm.
And so lately I've been finding myself, well, let's shift into impersonal awareness, and it just resonates with what you're saying. I think that for our listeners and people out there, once you've seen what you can unseen and maybe you realized your true nature, there's always there's this option, right?
Yes.
That you can take moment by moment
Mm.
of whether or not you're going to engage and accept that invitation or
Yes.
not.
Yes. Well, it's interesting mentioning your boys because a few weeks ago I had a similar experience when I went for dinner with a friend who's he has two daughters of I think they're 13 and 11, and it was quite interesting because they were in that mode as well, the sort of sibling rivalry, the bickering, and that sort of thing. But they were actually very receptive because I was explaining the way the three-dimensional realm is like an energy game, and
Mm,
and certainly moving into the teen years, the invitations tend to become more intense, really, for most of us. And
mm,
so that's when the conflict can begin more intensely. But I said, really, there is an option, quite a simple option, which is that if we direct our energy and attention into conflict, especially with loved ones, we're actually we're using energy which could be used in a much more beneficial way.
yeah.
And so by consciously ceasing to do that kind of thing, you find that the areas of your life which can be more progressive things, so things like fun and laughter and love and care for each other, they become much more vital and more available. And I actually met with my friend and his daughters just over a week ago, and the transformation was amazing because they were just having a really great time. They were laughing with each other. You could tell there was just this real bond. And so even outside the realms of self-realization, there's a practical approach we can all have, which is quite simple, really, which is that we can redirect the energy that we're funneling into conflict and mental and emotional disturbance more
Mm,
to harmony, expansion. And when there's a focus within a family like that, it can just transform the energy hugely. So, um, but that's an example of the way things just come up. I'm fortunate in meeting lots of people online, having conversations, and um, learning things along the way because I'm sure you found it's a two-way flow, really.
yes.
And so the more I'm blessed in being able to speak with lots of people, and so I've just been able to integrate so many new things because things just come forward which you had no idea, solutions and different possibilities.
Yeah. Do you find, David, that when you're having conversations with these people, the wisdom just comes in the moment of how to like guide them in such a way to their true nature?
Yeah, definitely. I think, as you were saying, there's an option which is really to function more from impersonal being than adopting the conditioned mode, the personal mode. And where there's the absence of the personal mode, there's no impediment to the flow of information or knowledge coming through. It's almost like channeling through us rather than coming from us.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've found that. I've noticed in the way um, your conversations and presentations flow. There's there's sometimes an initial seed idea, and then they just kind of take their own direction, and it's amazing the way they just flow, really.
Yes.
So for each of us, it's an ongoing process. There's no upper limit because it constantly develops, and there's a falling away of the conditioning and the falling away of the activation of the personal mode. And
Yeah.
it is actually it's quite easy because it's I use the distinction between expansion and contraction because um, invitations into the mental and emotional content which is disturbing always gives rise to a feeling of contraction. But
Mm.
when there's the opportunity to just rest as impersonal awareness and align with our infinite nature, then it always feels expansive and it always flows, and it's a kind of frictionless flow in that sense. So it's actually quite easy to navigate. It's just that the dualistic realm is it's designed to keep us energetically engaged. So most people we speak with, the education system, the media, and everything, they're all really reinforcing the personal mode, which is the place not to be.
Yes. And I found that, over the past 3 years, there were, what's really happened that I've witnessed unfolding is there was this unraveling and this dropping of a lot of identity and a
Yes.
lot of beliefs
Mm,
and a lot of what I would call programming,
mm,
right?
yes.
But there were some, persistent ones that, that kept on coming. And I guess that, those identifications kept coming because there was some part of, the character Krista that was still engaging
Yes.
in that activity. And the one for me that kept coming up. So I let go of corporate America, Krista, and I kind of like stepped into this again into the mystic role,
Mm,
right? Because I had a background as an energy channeler, an energy healer, kind of like psychic, all of those
yeah,
things. But there was a clarity around all of that.
yes.
But then there was still like an engagement with it.
Mm,
And so what I would find would be that I would rest in impersonal awareness, but then there would be like, oh, she's back in the role, she's back identified with it. And once I was identified with it, I would just kind of go in this little loop and then I would recognize and say, okay, no,
mm,
I'm
yeah.
I
Well,
don't
I'm
know.
sure you've spent the whole of your life really functioning from impersonal being. It's something you brought into this life with you. It's just that the programming for all of us can be quite intense, and in a way, living the life of a household, being married, having children, and the responsibility of a family is it's a more profound opportunity really for integration because um, integrating impersonal being into life, if we're living as a monk, is quite simple really because there aren't so many challenges. But I think with living as a householder, it's a greater opportunity because you're dealing with different kinds of challenges, but ultimately the rewards of that are far greater because you have the opportunity to function in any circumstances, really.
Yeah, that really resonates with me. And I had those realizations myself as well. There's this pull to want to be a monk and live in the cabin in the woods by myself, right? That would be my preference. But
Yeah.
here I find myself in this situation where I'm a bit, a busy mother,
Mm.
and you have to work and you have to interact with all these people, and and then you also have this drive to be a mystic, and and go around the astral realms or whatever. So it's definitely been a a recognition that that was occurring,
Mm.
and
Yes.
that being able to just treat life as the meditation, treat life as the practice itself,
Yes.
right,
Yes.
has been a lot. It's been really freeing, and it's opened it up more, because sometimes when you're in all of that, you're like, how can I operate this
Mm.
way?
Mm. It's interesting the way things just come through effortlessly because I remember the circumstances when we first met because initially we were going to have a conversation for your podcast
Yes.
and um, and then you messaged to say, well, actually, there's been realization, and so could we have a different kind of conversation? And that's a really good example of the way the most amazing things they just come from nowhere somehow.
Yes.
And that's the thing I love actually, because impersonal being gives us the opportunity to experience in a much more magical way. And
Mhm.
life is it's a field of infinite possibilities because the degree to which we're directing our energy into the personal mode is the degree to which we're limiting our infinite potential, really. And
Yes.
so it becomes much more playful when you see that things just come to you. And I think with your watching your videos and the way your channel's developed, it's a great example of that, really, because you you just present things in a really authentic way, and that comes over. And I think that's why people really like to listen to everything you have to say because you're not glossing it over at all. It's just quite raw in some cases. But I think people can relate to that because we've all been through that. We all have those challenges.
Yeah, I try not to wear any sort of mask
Mm.
anymore. But I think that you say something that has also come up, and you definitely hint to this in many of your conversations. It's about letting life unfold, right? And if you rest in that impersonal awareness, and you step away from the little I, and you take your hands off the wheel, so to speak, and you don't need to control anything, you don't need to direct the energy in any way. You just, enjoy this fun ride and just see
Mm.
what happens.
Yes.
And I've heard you say this in many of your conversations, as well. Like, you had the example of, I think that you had a house at some point, and you found yourself maybe out of work, and you needed to work on this house, and so you spent maybe a longer period of time working on this house in a really like calm and pleasant way,
Mm.
where you weren't forcing anything, right? You
Yeah.
weren't directing anything. And then it happened that you finished the work, and you enjoyed your time, and everything was great,
Mm.
and the house had like doubled in value,
Yes.
right? And then everything worked out in the
Yes.
end.
Mm.
But when you're kind of navigating the daily life, you have to remind yourself to say, okay, I'm just going to let life unfold
Mm.
and step out of this little I.
Yeah.
And I've had examples of that too, David, since I've let go. Especially, there was a lot of attachment to money because of my, kind of letting go of that corporate
Yes.
job and everything, and
Yes.
expecting to, like, there's a program that, oh, I have to make this much money,
Mm.
and or I have to live a certain way, but letting go of that and just saying, no, there's a flow of enough,
Mm.
and
Yes.
I have everything that I need. And so what happened over time was that everything was taken care of financially, health wise. Everything was just in this unexpected, perfect package when I was just able to let it go. And, you definitely inspired me on that. And then you talked about your brother as
Mm.
well, so thank you.
Well, it's an interesting way of living, really, which just kind of presented itself because quite often that perspective emerges really from suffering or from adversity, because with the house you mentioned, um, at one point it looked as though I was going to lose everything. But so the only option was just to let go. And then it seemed more sensible to focus on the enjoyment of it every day, because I couldn't really have any influence on the sort of bigger picture of things. And that was exactly the thing which made a difference, because even if we're successful financially and materially, it's still based on fear and bondage in a way, because it's the idea that we have to, it's the mental concept of what we need to be safe and comfortable. But actually, that's never safe or comfortable, because the ultimate safety and comfort exists within our infinite nature. And when there's just an allowing of life to unfold, and we're consciously enjoying life in quite a simple way, where we're prioritizing a sense of self-respect and living in a way which is balanced, so we're not overexerting, really enjoying every aspect of life, as it is with your family. It's such a precious time, and just really enjoying every moment. You can't put a price on that. And I think that it's that aspect really where you discover what is enrichment in life and what really isn't that important. And it tends to be that the programming we've had has been into fear, especially regarding money. But it's tried and tested really with lots of people now, to see that it is the human realm is definitely a frequency-based experience. And if we maintain a frequency of joy, ease, lightness, compassion, love, um, in our daily experience, appreciation of everything in our life exactly as it is, then it tends to evolve from there even more. But if we're living from fear and trying to hold on to everything and manage it with the mind, it's not a pleasant experience, and it tends to it tends to take us into overexertion usually.
Yeah.
So but it's a relief to discover that, because um, as we do, um, we find actually that the other things, things like material comfort, they can just appear much more effortlessly. That they appear without the striving, and so it's a much more sensible way to live, really. And it's good that lots of people are having the same experience now.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. I think that most of us are programmed from, a young age that, you have to go and do these things. You have to make them, this, a good amount of money or whatever. And what I'm finding, and I talked to you a little bit about this before, is that there is definitely a resonance with, the Tao Te Ching, the idea of slow living, Wu Wei,
Yeah, yeah,
it's to me, it's all the same.
yes,
I think,
yeah,
it's talking about the same thing and just,
yeah.
different
Mm,
terminologies.
mm.
And I guess there's a lot of resonance with Lao Tzu's teachings
Mm.
on that. Have you? I know that you've probably had, you know, interactions with those teachings. Have you looked into Wu Wei or slow living?
I know a little bit about them, but really, I tend to, well, I did lots of seeking and research of all kinds of religions and philosophies
Yeah,
prior to realization. But since then, it's been much more intuitive, because it's as though there's something which is just guiding the way knowledge unfolds. And so I haven't really I haven't really read many books for the past 20 years, for instance,
yeah,
because well, it tends to be that you can see because it's a game of hide and seek, really, the whole game of self-realization, you can see in many teachings that they tend to be a mixture of knowledge which is really useful and then other aspects which aren't so useful. And from realization, you can make that distinction. But prior to realization, you don't know which bits are valuable and which bits you can discard.
Yeah, just kind of going in all directions, right?
Yeah.
The seeking cycle. Yeah.
And I think
I've
with
been the
your
same
approach,
way.
sorry, Krista, well, you're probably finding, like with slow living really is another way of saying effortless being, I guess, because
Mm,
it's just really living in a way where the mind isn't engaged so much um, and just letting it unfold. And so um, there's definitely an intuitive guidance which comes through, and it's much. It's the things we used to do when the seeking was intense. It required lots of time and energy and attention going on retreats, reading lots of books, watching lots of videos, speaking with lots of people. But it's so liberating not to require that anymore because you realize that well, everyone ultimately is the infinite being, and you just see that there are these little lenses or filters which have been added through conditioning, and through programming, um, which can remain in place without us realizing. But
yeah.
one of the simplest ones really is that when we accept that we are um, the infinite being, we're the infinite field of beingness and awareness, which is the totality of existence, really. So
Mhm.
knowing that there is no separation. So it's obvious that whatever we need will come to us and it
Yep.
will be delivered. Whereas if there's a residue of feeling that we need to be pursuing things on a personal level, then that's limiting to some degree. And it's a funny little game really, because with realization, as you've noticed, the invitations which come following realization tend to be the ones which are designed to try to put us back into the personal mode. But when we see that that's the objective of those mental and emotional invitations, then it's easier to decline them because they work on the basis of inversion largely. So whatever they're trying to persuade us of, the opposite is usually true. So if we're quite a simple example is if, for instance, we're having old invitations into mental and emotional feelings of lack or disturbance in some way, it's really because we're actually moving into more freedom. But
Mm,
the dualistic structures want to keep us engaged in the personal realm, and so they tend to try to direct our attention to the opposite of where the potential is. But that in itself is liberating because you can just see that if we just invert the invitation and say, well, actually, it isn't because I'm insecure or worthless or anything, it's actually because I've realized my potential is infinite. So I'm really going to entertain that idea rather than entertain the ones that the mind's trying to convince me of.
I love that. Yeah, I definitely resonate with what you're saying, and I think that's kind of going back to what we were talking before, the dualistic realm knows
Mm.
what you historically will engage in, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And then, what had happened with me, and I'm going to mention it because I think that probably there's a lot of people on my channel and maybe your channel as well that come from, spiritual communities.
Yes.
And because the way that it happened for me, and I think this may happen for a lot of people, there was earlier in life, there was a seeking outwardly,
Mm.
right? And then there was a spiritual seeking. And the
Yes.
spiritual seeking went for a very, very long time.
Mm.
And because of that, and when there was realization, there was a dropping of seeking.
Yes.
And because there was still identification with the spiritual seeker, there would be a lot of invitations with, oh, people I know would say, I don't really get what, you're talking about. You need to activate your divine feminine. I see it in you, and, things like
Yeah.
that. And I'd sit back and I'd be like, okay, you know, but
Well,
I think
I think
that,
that's a lovely example actually with you, Krista. The idea that you need to activate your divine feminine when really it's abundantly clear that it's fully operational.
yeah. And there was just so many of them.
Mm,
And it became so, at one point, it was just so clear what was happening. It
mm.
just like you were talking about, there was a complete inversion. The whole world
Yes.
everything's inverted. So I think whenever we're seeing these invitations occur, and people are saying things like, oh, your chakra is blocked or whatever, um, it's it's the inverted, right? So I think that what you're pointing to is absolutely helpful, and just realizing that you're already whole, you're already complete, and just
Yes.
accepting that fully,
Yes.
body, mind, spirit, that
Definitely.
you are this sovereign being. But another thing that was has been a challenge is still being part of these spiritual communities. And I resonate with the teachings, and I understand. I take the truth out of them,
Mm,
that
mm.
there's truths in there,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And I'm still part of the community in some cases,
Mm.
but I don't think anyone really gets what we're talking about fully, and I feel myself holding back and not, just innately knowing not to say anything, you
Yes.
know?
Well, that's really guidance into impersonal being, really, because the conditioning we've had has been to try to promote certain kinds of knowledge or to defend certain aspects. But the liberating thing of impersonal being is that there's no longer anything to defend or promote. It's only a matter of just being available,
Mm.
and then it becomes really easy. And because people have their own perspectives, and you can see certain tendencies. For instance, the sequence you mentioned, where initially the seeking is in the world, we're seeking in a conventional way, and then that becomes a form of spiritual seeking. But the spiritual seeking initially is the gathering of experiences in different ways. And so we're looking for heightened spiritual experiences, and we're practicing to try to have those, thinking that they're actually representing some kind of future fixed state of liberation. When we discover that the the experiences, in a way, are part of the entertainment along the way, and paradoxically they do become more available when we're not swinging between heightened spiritual experiences and a feeling that they're lacking in some way, or
Mm.
that there's something lacking. And um, and and then ultimately with realization, it's the simplicity of seeing that it's been a mistaken identity, that actually all along we've remained as the infinite, effortless, impersonal, indestructible being. And it's just that we were deceived into adopting the personal mode without realizing that that's what's been done. So there really isn't anything to there isn't anything to pursue. It's only really a matter of seeing that we've been spinning plates. It's like there are certain things we've been carrying with us where we feel as though effort has been required and we need to maintain something, when actually um, our full potential emerges when we cease to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those people out there, and I was definitely one of these people that have had a lot of mystical experiences, let's say.
Mm.
encounter a lot of encounters on the astral plane, even, seeing things with your eyes and
Yes.
let's say even galactic beings.
Great.
How do you how do you explain this? Maybe it doesn't need it's almost like it has to be experienced directly
Mm,
for people to get it. But I just want to kind of like see what your thoughts are on that because I feel like there's a lot of incredible beings that I know
mm,
that are still in those realms and still in those astral realms.
mm, mm.
And there's it's not that it's wrong. I mean,
No.
those things are there,
Yes.
but how would you explain that or maybe point people to the recognition of their own true nature if they're kind of in that?
Mm. The the koshas are quite a good model to do that because um, we firstly discover that we're the simple principle of awareness, which is um, in Indian terms they use the words Rishi, Devata, and Chandas, which they mean the knower, the means of knowing, and the known. And it just means that really it's awareness aware of itself. So we are simply that principle of awareness, and because it's actually um, an infinite field and it's impersonal and it's attributeless, then it's simply knowing itself, really. And then you discover that actually that sort of trinity of our true nature, awareness aware of itself, the knower, the means of knowing the known, is actually all there ever is. So
Mm-hmm.
it's either directly known, where it's just um, it's just the knowing on that level of the simplest kind of awareness, or it's a disguised version. And so the first kosher to emerge is the body of bliss, which is just that there is impersonal, effortless awareness of infinite bliss, but it's self-knowing in that it doesn't require a person. It isn't a person who experiences that. We have to remain as the infinite field of beingness and awareness for there to be the potential to experience infinite bliss.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the second kosher, which is the body of wisdom, is really the causal realm. So that is where unity still prevails in the causal realm, and it predominates. So there is no judgment or comparison really in the causal realm. It's just that everything is known equally and effortlessly arising within oneself. So you could say it's unity consciousness. Um, each of the koshas, maybe not so much the body of bliss, but certainly the body of wisdom, the mental body, the the emotional body, and the physical body, they each have frequency layers. So as it is with the physical body, for instance, the physical body has the chakras. So there are seven frequency layers there. So the color range is actually the same in each of the koshas. So in the in the mental body, which is the astral realm, um, they go from red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo to violet. In the etheric realm, which is the emotional body, they also go from red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo to and violet, as they do in the chakras in the physical body.
Mm-hmm.
So, so as we become firstly grounded within the knowing of impersonal, effortless awareness, which is the causal level, the body of wisdom, then we're able to consciously experience the other realms. So the astral realm, you could say the lower frequencies in the astral realm, so in the mental realm. So the most extreme forms of duality and conflict exist in the lower levels, so in the red and orange zones. And then as we move up into the higher levels, so the highest level, for instance, the the violet realm in the astral realm is like a heavenly realm, and it's a realm which is very close to unity. The distinction between the highest in the astral and unity, it's a very fine distinction, really. But everything exists within that whole realm. So, encountering galactic beings in the lower levels, you would encounter certain kinds of predatory beings, probably, and then in the higher realms, they'd be just much more supportive and harmonious.
Hmm.
And the etheric body is similar. So, well, you could say in the mental body, the conceptual structures differ. So there's much more, for instance, in the lower frequencies of the mental body, there's much heavier identification with the personal realm and
Hmm.
with projecting the personal, um, the personal entity into the relative experience. So it's more to do with conflict, competition, proving oneself, demonstrating all of those things. Whereas in the higher levels, there's much more unity, so it's much more compassionate, really. And the etheric realm, because the etheric realm is something really which emerged from the astral. So it's like it's a supplementation in a way, because initially we experience as consciousness projects from attributeless being. The astral realm initially is to do with concepts and forms, but it isn't supplemented by the energetic aspect of the etheric realm. So the energetic fluctuations in the etheric realm give a more intense experience. So for instance, there could be a feeling in the or a thought in the astral realm, something like "I don't like you," because the astral realm is dualistic. Um, but when the etheric realm is also operational, it's "I don't like you" plus being it's supplemented by an emotional charge as well, which is a direction, and then that also can find its way into the physical realm. But the really the objective is to realize that we can remain as effortless impersonal awareness, and then we have sovereignty really to be able to experience the different realms on our own terms, rather than being subject to them, because each of them has their little excursions which can keep us engaged, so we can become obsessed with certain things, because there's infinity wherever we look. So there's infinity in the astral realm, in the etheric realm, and in the physical realm. But re-establishing the simplicity of effortless impersonal awareness restores sovereignty in each of the different realms of experience, so that we can navigate them on our terms and we can enjoy them, and really introduce unity into them in a way, which is, that seems to be what's happening on many levels at the moment. I think lots of the dualistic structures are being shaken at the moment because um, there's quite a transformation taking place.
Yeah, I love that. And how does that relate to, like, if you see aura colors, is it sort of the same idea?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, the
Okay.
colors the colors relate in a similar way. So the more intense colors like the red, orange, yellow,
Hmm.
they tend to express certain kinds of energy, and then the more refined ones tend to be more subtle, really subtle energy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I thought too. And there was a sense at some point that, there's no need to go into those realms anymore. And for me,
Yes,
and my pathless path, there was just, right here, right now in
yes,
this physical body.
Yes.
right? And when I found myself as a meditation teacher, for
Mm,
example, sending people off into these realms and experiencing all of this, energy collectively,
mm.
I felt at some point it wasn't helpful. I felt that, to teach people the most deepest and most profound truth is to recognize your true nature, and then to learn how to be completely, pull that full presence, like harness
Yeah.
your full presence in each and every moment.
Yes.
So that's been kind of a dropping away over time. But one thing that I wanted to ask you about that also occurred because of my experience into yoga and qigong and
Mm,
these different modalities with breath work and things.
mm.
I felt like, in my pathless path, and when I was in my spiritual seeking after I stopped looking outwardly, there were a lot of practices that were helpful, I think, to like calm the nervous system
Yes.
in order to get to a certain point to be
Yes.
able to see this clearly.
Yes.
And I almost feel like for me, because I suffered trauma as a child, and because I went through certain experiences, heightened experiences, we'll say,
Yes.
I feel like that was maybe necessary on my journey.
Yes. That's a really good point because we we're each programmed in different ways, and it can take um, various approaches really to have the best effect. And so so because our infinite nature is omnipresent, we can
Mm,
actually find it within each of the koshas. So in the physical body, for instance, doing physical exercises, tai chi, or um, yoga, different postures and things. They can actually, because the body and the mind are completely interrelated. In fact, the three dualistic koshas are the mental body, the etheric body, which is the emotional body, and the physical body.
mm,
So you can affect each of them from the others. And the most profound one actually is to become familiar with effortless being, because
mm,
we can affect the other three in a really holistic way. But as you notice, there can be certain things. For instance, if there have been experiences in the etheric realm, in the emotional body, then there can be certain things like for you, because the etheric body or the emotional body is related to the breath. It's called pranamaya kosha, so it's the body of breath in a way. So really, a very effective way to bring balance into the etheric realm, if there has been trauma, is using various breathing techniques.
mm.
If the trauma is more in the physical body, then various postures, physical activity. Um, in the mental realm, things like meditation, um, can be very helpful. But it's just having that sense of knowing and trusting one's intuition as to what is going to be the most effective. Um, but the benefit of becoming familiar with effortless being is that it creates a sense of neutrality, which then finds its way into the mental, emotional, and physical realm. So it naturally restores balance. But it
Mm,
just tends to be that there can be a residue of certain programs and invitations in each of those realms. And sometimes they require direct attention rather than something, because the intensity of the invitations, they can sometimes um, need direct attention in some way. So
right. So
so
if you're experiencing a very heavy identification, right? It
yeah,
might be worth it to. look at it
Yes.
and through impersonal awareness to
Yes.
bring your awareness around it so
Yeah.
that it just kind of flows on through, I guess.
Well, yeah, and also the benefit of impersonal being impersonal awareness is that the greatest resource really, which is the infinite intelligence, which is available through our infinite nature, becomes available when we just align with impersonal being. Whereas if we're more engaged in the dualistic realm and the mental, emotional, and physical content, then it's a more diluted option. So, um, and also the quality of intelligence in the dualistic realm is an intelligence which is it's intelligence really without love, or because it's a different structure there really. Whereas the intelligence available within the first two koshas, within the body of bliss and the body of wisdom, they're a combination of infinite intelligence and infinite love. So they tend to bring the solutions you need. So you find that whatever the remedy is will appear effortlessly to you. So it may be even specific things. I've noticed that just being alert to things, just remarks that people just say, where it's a sort of throwaway remark, but it's actually it turns a light on sometimes, and you just sense there's some value in that. So they may mention some kind of remedy or some alternative medication or something, I'm much more attentive to the things which come effortlessly rather than feeling I need to research and seek anything. Because that's the nature of effortless being, really. Because if we're in the mode of seeking and researching and effort, we're in the energy construct of the dualistic realm. Whereas reclaiming our status as effortless awareness, effortless being, everything's actually available there for us.
Yeah, I actually have an example of that as well that happened, in my life where I was having some gut issues, we'll say, and just effortlessly, I took a class, not even on that. And I was presented a supplement and
Mm.
then it got, it healed it. It's
Yes.
incredible.
Yeah.
So I
That's
think
exactly.
that you touch upon something, you know, so profound that I think many of us, especially in today's world, will go out there on chat gpt and just try to figure everything out,
Mm.
right? And just allowing yourself to just live in the moment and just let the solutions and wisdom come through moment by moment.
Mm.
And like you said before, I find that although I've been drawn to Lao Tzu, I haven't really read any book
Mm.
since we met. Not
Right.
really fully, it just
Good.
feels like maybe I might pick up something and flip to a page and then just be surprised that okay, that's what I needed.
Yes. Yeah.
But there's no feeling that there needs to be any seeking at all in
Mm.
that regard,
Well, that's
which
great,
is
actually, Krista. Yeah, because well, that just demonstrates really that you're functioning primarily from effortless being, and that's the place to be, really, because um, where there's just the ease of effortless being, effortless awareness, there is actually a structure. There is a frequency structure within effortless being, as there is in the dualistic koshas. So it tends to be that the lowest level in effortless being is neutrality.
hmm,
And then there are certain things like um, inspiration, intuition, cognition, various forms of creativity. And these, I'm sure you found probably since you were really young, that these things come as kind of downloads in a way. It's just that
hmm.
the information just comes in like a little package and you just recognize it. And then um, with things, with because we can operate primarily in the causal realm, in effortless being, and we don't really need to activate the dualistic realm. It's not a lot of fun in there, really. So, so
Except
just
with the galactic beings. I'm kidding.
so but there's a kind of ascending order within effortless being, which is it tends to be things inspire us, and then we feel this expansiveness, and then whatever the means appear before us, so that we can put it into practice, and then that creates more of a feeling of expansion, and there can be heightened um, experiences coming in, which result in things like expansion of love, expansion of compassion, euphoria, bliss, and they because they're the content in the body of wisdom in effortless being is directing us back towards the body of bliss, and back towards the simplicity of impersonal being. Whereas if we move in the other direction, if we go from effortless being into the conceptual realm, it's taking us back into duality and the realm of effort. So
Yeah,
but that's exactly what you're doing, the way you describe things. It's because you're intuitively feeling your way through that, and energetically you sense the direction to go.
yeah. Well, sometimes I get off the beating path, but I somehow make my way back. I wanted to ask you, David, real quick about you've mentioned this before. So, like diet and purifying your vessel. So, many years ago, just intuitively became a vegetarian. I found that I couldn't really eat meat. And then I also had to give up gluten because I would get like these terrible rashes on my face. And I also struggled with addiction to alcohol and cannabis and
Mhm.
things like that. Even after realization, there was a letting go of alcohol completely, and then alcohol was replaced by cannabis, and then
Mhm.
there was a letting go of cannabis, and now at this point, it's like there's a complete indifference to all of it. So I know I said a lot, but I'd love your thoughts on that.
Well, the substances you mentioned, they're all having an impact in the dualistic realm, really. So with food, especially with meat, um, eating meat is actually a ritual, um, and it's a ritual which creates a kind of hierarchy in one's consciousness and a very dualistic approach to things, which is actually why the religions all put forward the importance of eating meat and preparing it in different ways. But actually, the methods that are put forward are the ones which create the most intense forms of duality in our consciousness. Um, so you intuitively recognize that a more simple diet is something which just keeps you free of that, and then you just feel that, and it brings more more unity. And there's a guy who does some work for me, and he used to eat quite a lot of meat, and then he became vegetarian. His personality just transformed completely, from being quite dualistic to having a much more sense of unity with all of life, with human life, animal life, everything really. But with, for instance, alcohol or cannabis, alcohol probably is the most harmful one, because there's no upside to it really. There is only, alcohol is very similar to sort of loan sharks, the way they operate, in that you you're offered this little glimpse of elation or peace or something for half an hour when you have the first couple of drinks, and then it deteriorates into the arising of all kinds of disturbing thoughts and invitations. and emotional disturbance as well. The alcohol really disturbs the emotions. But
Mm.
because it's mainstream, it's put forward as being, oh yeah, well, you can really relax well on alcohol. But it is like a loan shark because you have like 10, well, maybe 5 to 10% of enjoyment at best, and then 90 to 95% of suffering really, and mental and emotional disturbance. And so it actually, what I sense with you is the way we become free of all addictions, which is where you recognize that we've bought into something which has been presented as being desirable, but actually you see it in the raw light of day for what it is. So you see that alcohol actually is a very poor investment of our energy because we have a very small amount of uh, pleasure. And then from that, you have the mental, emotional, and physical torture. So you have, it disturbs the physiology, it disturbs the emotions, it disturbs the mind. Um, so it becomes very easy to become free of it because we actually begin to notice what it really does rather than what we've been told it does.
Yeah.
And with cannabis, cannabis, I, cannabis, if it's used moderately and in an intuitive way, can open consciousness in many ways. It can give us various forms of insight and different experiences where different parts of the mind open up. But
Mm.
there is a downside to that sometimes, which is that because it exists in the dualistic realm, it can bring experiences which aren't all that favorable. And because the dualistic realm is predatory, then we can find ourselves. It's similar to I think there's a passage in the Bible about the wedding feast and showing up in the right attire. And what it's trying to say is that you can have those experiences naturally as we realize we can function from effortless impersonal being. All the experiences on cannabis become naturally available to us. But if we're activating them artificially through a substance, we may not be in the right attire to have those experiences. So we can have, we find we're in the wrong suit in the mental body, the etheric body, and the physical body, and we find that those experiences can be, they can be disturbing or they can be out of context and all kinds of things, really.
Yeah. And I think that also what happens with addictions is there's this whole blame and shame game that
Yes,
happens too with them. It's
definitely.
like,
Yes.
oh, you need this every day. And
Yes.
it's a seeking of, like, I have to have this, right?
Yes.
In order to feel calm
Yes.
now, right?
Yes.
So I love that answer. Thank you, David.
Well, there's another aspect to it in a way, Krista, which is that um, the more we learn to function from impersonal being rather than the personal mode, we can actually have any experience. So we could go and have a lot to drink one night, and there would be some invitations, there'd be a bit of blame and shame coming up, but actually it wouldn't really have much of an impact. And the same with cannabis and drugs and things, because they they require the personal mode to be effective in creating
Mm,
the disturbance on a mental, emotional, and physical level. Whereas when we're realizing that we're resting as attributeless awareness, we're simply this open space of impersonal being within which all experiences arise. We're not actually identifying with the personal mode because it's the personal mode which is addicted, not you, the infinite being. So,
yeah.
and that when you see it in that way, it's actually quite comical because you can. I remember a few years ago, a dear friend of mine, he's a little bit older than me, and he's Irish, and he came over and we spent the day together, and we arrived at this local bar, and he said, "Oh, shall we just go and have a, have a little drink?" And because it was St. Patrick's Day, um, we had one drink, which led to 10, and so we, had a call to get a lift home, but it didn't have the same impact. There was no addiction. There was no. It was that was just the experience on that day, and it was quite comical in a way. But there was
Yeah.
no feeling the next day, oh, I need to go and do that again. That happened maybe 15 years ago, and there hasn't been an experience like it since. But in a way, it's having the freedom to have those experiences, and the freedom exists within impersonal being. But because the dualistic realm is intent on trying to get us to identify with the personal mode, if it can convince us that we are the separate being, then it can roll out things like blame and shame and guilt and all of those kind of things, and addictions, and oh, you shouldn't do this, and it's your fault, and all of those things. But it's all fiction, really, and
Yeah.
it becomes hilarious when you see that we've been deceived into activating that identity, which is really complete fiction.
Yeah, and that whole identity just keeps you in this box, and you just need to take the box out and just operate from that impersonal awareness and
Yeah,
just let that spontaneity, kind of guide everything
yeah.
moment by moment. I
And then
love that.
it's hilarious then, really. The whole idea of personal problems really they just dissolve.
I have one more. It's a quote from Ron Doss that he uses a lot, and I think that it could kind of like pull this all together. And it's something that I've experienced over the last 3 years. So, a phrase that Ron Doss frequently uses is the game is not about becoming somebody, it's about becoming a nobody.
Wonderful. I love that.
And so, you know, me and my husband laugh about this because on our journeys together, we've been married, like 18 years, something like that, and
Fantastic.
we always wanted to be somebody, go out in the world and be somebody, and then Krista, the character, wanted to be a spiritual somebody.
Mm.
And sometimes I see that even on my YouTube channel, and I have to like pause and say, are you trying to be somebody somebody special? But the more I go deeper into this pathless path, there's this sense of, just being, there's a freedom in just being a nobody and just kind of like living in this very simple and humble way and just letting life just happen and unfold. And, like we talked about many times in this conversation, just resting in that impersonal awareness, and also making that an option of whether or not you want to engage in the personal mode. And, going off of what you said before is, if you want to drink a few beers with some friends or have a glass of wine, or Chris, if you want to do a meditation and go out into the astral realm, no problem. It's not about
Exactly.
keeping yourself in this box. So
No.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on that phrase.
Well, I love that actually. It summarizes really the option that's available. But the benefit really of being a nobody, you're just resting as impersonal being, is that actually our potential on a relative level becomes more powerful, because it's the impediment of personalization which actually blocks our potential. And for instance, with your channel has developed really well, but it's from the foundation of impersonal being rather than the need to promote oneself as an important person. And so that's really the way it works. But the um, the personal realm isn't an issue at all. It's actually just a lot of fun, and we can adopt it in different ways when there's the solid foundation of impersonal being, because there isn't anything scary in the personal realm. We can enjoy every aspect of it, and we can be multidimensional, really. You find yourself in different circumstances with different people, and having completely different experiences. But there isn't there isn't really a necessity to try to regulate it too intensely because it's really just about having lots of fun. It's like the whole range of the koshas, including the dualistic realm. It's just like a multi-dimensional theme park,
Yeah.
and so just remaining as impersonal being, we remain in our sovereign nature, so we get to say which rides we go on. Whereas if we're in the personal mode, we seem to be victim to certain things. It's almost the personal mode, it's almost like attending a theme park with a bully, and he's saying we'll go on this one next, and you go on and you're being sick and everything.
Yeah. I
But
love
that's
it.
but the simplicity of impersonal being is you just enjoy it all on your own terms, but there isn't anything that we need to have any aversion to really. And we're just naturally guided. It's just very playful
Yeah.
and lots of fun.
The total opposite experience of the world of duality where you feel very confined and you're always resisting and directing and controlling everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, David.
Great. Well,
I,
great to spend time with you, Krista. It's been so nice.
yes, definitely. So, David, I'm going to include a link to your channel, and I definitely encourage all the viewers to, check David's conversations out there. I listen to them a lot. And just like David, you said earlier, there's always new things that emerge, right? Because someone has just a different
Mm.
lens
Yes.
based off of their story, right? So I find it very helpful. And I'm so grateful for the work that you do and the beings that are out there having those conversations. And you also do those calls, right? So where you have like meetups for helping people to realize their true nature. Is that through your website,
Yes,
David?
we tend to have a community meeting once a month.
Okay, perfect.
Really, well, to answer any questions people have, but also it's been quite good because there are certain themes I've been able to present, giving an insight into things which the opportunity to do that doesn't emerge in one-to-one conversations sometimes. So
Yeah,
it's been quite good in that way. But
wonderful. Well,
yeah,
I'll definitely include your website as well. And thank you so much for this conversation, dear friend. And I'm very thankful for you.
well, thanks so much, Christy. Yeah, it's so nice. I feel, there are people who came forward a few years ago, such as yourself, and it's almost like having, supporters around because, um, everyone has their own unique approach, which is perfect in that sense.
Yeah,
But there is a commonality really, and it's really good. Lots of people have mentioned your name to me, and they resonate with the things that you're putting forward, and it's just so nice to feel as though there is this it's quite a broad range of support. So it's great. So yeah, but lovely to see you again, and yeah, thanks so much for inviting me to have the conversation. I'll definitely be posting it on my YouTube channel.
sounds good, David. Take care, friend.
Yeah, all the best to you, Krista. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks. Bye bye.